The high seas have long been a place where powerful nations show off their military might, with their navies often competing for dominance. But recent developments have made these encounters even more dramatic. In an unexpected twist, the U.S. Navy submarine surfaces within the Russian fleet, setting off a series of events that no one could have predicted. What caused this daring move, and what were the immediate effects? Join us as we uncover the incredible events that happened on the open waters. The Pentagon recently took a bold step by sending 3 Navy destroyers and some maritime patrol aircraft to closely monitor a group of Russian ships that came as close as 30 miles to the Florida coast during their missile exercises. According to a defense official, these ships were constantly being watched as they moved through the Atlantic, all while staying within international waters. What makes this even more intriguing is that Russia didn't try to hide its actions. Russian state media proudly announced that 4 ships, including a frigate and a nuclear-powered submarine, would stop in Havana between June 12 and June 17, 2024. The Russian Ministry of Defense also openly shared updates about the exercises online, highlighting the use of advanced, high-precision missile weapons and even posting videos from the ships. These exercises weren't just for show either. The crews of the frigate and submarine were hard at work practicing missile targeting through computer simulations. These weren't simple drills. They were aimed at striking imaginary enemy naval forces located over 600 kilometers away. It's worth noting that no real missiles were fired during these practice runs, but the whole situation felt like something straight out of a spy thriller. The Pentagon stayed quiet about the specific U.S. assets involved in their response. As a result, amateur analysts started doing their detective work online, using publicly available flight and ship tracking data to piece together the details. They soon discovered that the USS Truxtun, USS Donald Cook, and USS Delbert D. Black were the main players in this operation, quietly entering the area. But that wasn't all. The skies were busy too, with the powerful U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon aircraft engaged in a strategic game of hide-and-seek with hidden threats beneath the waves. A defense official added to the intrigue by mentioning routine operations across the Atlantic, involving the U.S. Navy's 2nd Fleet, 4th Fleet, Coast Guard Atlantic Area, and even Canada's Joint Task Force Atlantic. It was truly a notable display of maritime power. As if that wasn't enough, a recent snapshot from the Defense Department captured the USS Truxtun performing a surprisingly coordinated maneuver with the Canadian frigate HMCS Ville de Quebec and the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Stone. It was like a maritime dance, with each vessel contributing to a grand display of skill and coordination. Online chatter hinted at a possible connection between these maneuvers and a Russian presence, turning the whole scenario into an exciting game of nautical chess. The U.S. Navy destroyers moved with precision, their sleek designs reflecting both their strength and strategic skill. As they skillfully navigated through the waves, the Poseidon aircraft hovered above, keeping a careful watch over the vast sea, looking for any sign of trouble from the other side. The Russian ships moved forward with clear intent, their crews using a mix of technology and tactics that added to the dramatic feel of the maritime standoff. It felt like a scene from a blockbuster movie, where every move was crucial and the stakes were very high. The tension between the U.S. and Russian naval forces was almost noticeable, creating a quiet but intense confrontation on the open waters. In this high-stakes situation, the Canadian and U.S. Coast Guard ships represented the strength of their alliance, moving in perfect harmony with the U.S. destroyers and showing their unity and readiness. Recently, there has been a lot of activity as online analysts closely watch the movements of the Russian fleet, noting its closeness to U.S. shores, just 25 miles off the coast, with some reports focusing specifically on South Florida. Social media, especially platforms like Telegram, buzzed with images from Russian state-run sources that showed the Russian ships, including a powerful frigate and a stealthy submarine, arriving in Havana. In response, Pentagon spokespersons tried to calm concerns, suggesting that the port visit was routine, though with an interesting twist. These were no ordinary Russian vessels. They were equipped with some of the latest and most advanced military technology. For example, the Admiral Gorshkov frigate, introduced in 2018, and the Kazan submarine, launched in 2021, featured cutting-edge weaponry like the hypersonic Zircon anti-ship missile. Experts from the Royal United Services Institute noted that the Kazan submarine's stealth and strike capabilities were on par with or even better than those of its Western counterparts. The admiration for this Russian class of submarines was so intense that a U.S. Navy official proudly placed a model of the leading submarine outside his office for everyone to see every day. The increasing number of Russian naval visits to Cuba was hard to ignore, especially with the rising tensions due to U.S. support for Ukraine and NATO military exercises. As one defense expert noted, these activities might be a sign of what's to come, suggesting a potentially more dynamic and confrontational maritime environment in the future. This recent development marks a significant shift, as the Russian ships involved are among the most advanced in their fleet. Their proximity to U.S. coastlines highlights the ongoing tensions and the strategic moves being made by both nations. The sophisticated features of the Admiral Gorshkov frigate and the Kazan submarine highlight the changing balance of naval power and the need to carefully monitor these advancements. While the Pentagon might downplay these visits as routine, the advanced technology of these ships suggests there's more to the story. The Russian Kazan nuclear power submarine's advanced stealth abilities and firepower, combined with Admiral Gorkov's modern capabilities, highlight Russia's effort to update its navy. This move seems to be a response to the U.S. increasing its military support for its allies, especially in sensitive areas like Eastern Europe. As we observe these developments, it becomes clear that both the U.S. and Russia are keenly aware of each other's actions and strengths. This situation exemplifies the broader geopolitical competition that has been ongoing for decades. Think back to the Cold War, a period of intense rivalry and tension between the U.S. and the Soviet Union that lasted from the end of World War II in 1945 until the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. During the Cold War, the capitalist West, led by the U.S., and the communist East, led by the Soviet Union, were locked in a global struggle. This conflict shaped international relations, military strategies, and even technological progress. The recent presence of Russian ships near the U.S. coast and their docking in Havana evokes memories of those times, highlighting the enduring influence of the Cold War era on today's global politics. The Cold War began because the United States and the Soviet Union had very different ideas about how the world should be rebuilt and governed after World War II. The U.S. wanted countries to have democratic governments and free market economies, while the Soviet Union wanted to spread its communist control and centralize power. These opposing views led to decades of tension and competition that still affects global power dynamics today. During this time, both sides competed in various ways. They spread their ideas through the media, provided economic support, formed military alliances, and sometimes confronted each other indirectly. Controlling the seas was especially important, as it allowed countries to demonstrate their military power and protect their trade routes. The U.S. and Soviet navies often used submarines, warships, and aircraft carriers strategically to gain advantages over each other. For example, Soviet ships near U.S. territory and their visits to places like Havana were part of a Cold War strategy to display strength, gather information, and influence both allies and adversaries. Today, we can still see echoes of these strategies in the presence of modern Russian ships, like the Admiral Gorkov frigate and the Kazan submarine near the U.S. This is similar to how both superpowers used their fleets to project power during the Cold War. One major event of the Cold War was the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962. It became very serious when the United States discovered that the Soviet Union had placed ballistic missiles in Cuba, just off the coast of the U.S. This revelation caused immediate alarm in the U.S., leading to swift and decisive actions. In the middle of a tense global standoff, the United States reacted to the discovery of Soviet missiles in Cuba by placing a naval blockade around the island. They called for the removal of these missiles, pushing the world into a scary situation, as the threat of nuclear war seemed very real. Emotions were high, and both the U.S. and the Soviet Union were stuck in tough talks while also getting their military strategies ready. The world watched, unsure of what would happen next. Thankfully, through skilled diplomacy and careful compromises, the crisis was peacefully solved, avoiding what could have been a terrible conflict with worldwide consequences. Fast forward to today, The arrival of Russian ships in Havana is a clear sign of this key moment in history, showing Cuba's ongoing importance in U.S.-Russian relations. While the Pentagon, through spokeswoman Singh, has said that these ships don't pose an immediate threat, their presence brings back memories of the intense strategic moves of the Cold War and how quickly things can get worse if not managed carefully. The Cold War was a time of intense competition where both the United States and the Soviet Union rushed to develop more advanced military technology. This included nuclear weapons, long-range missiles, and powerful naval fleets. Even today, the effects of that arms race continue, as seen with Russia's Kazan submarine, which entered service in 2021, equipped with cutting-edge hypersonic missiles. During the Cold War, much of the focus was on building nuclear-powered submarines that could stay underwater for long periods, giving them the ability to launch missiles from beneath the ocean's surface. This remains a sign of the strategic and technological competition that marked that tense time in history. The study of submarines like Kazan by the Royal United Services Institute highlights how submarine technology keeps getting better and remains key for world strategy. During the Cold War, the rivalry between the US and the Soviet Union wasn't only about regular military forces. It also spread to areas like space travel, spying, and even cyber actions. One of the most well-known parts of this rivalry was the space race, where the Soviet Union launched Sputnik in 1957 and the US put a man on the moon in 1969. But besides space, improvements in submarine technology and naval strength played a big role in keeping the power balance and stopping possible conflicts. Spying was a key part of Cold War strategies. Both superpowers depended a lot on spying, setting up large networks, and using different methods to figure out what the other was planning or capable of doing. Submarines and spy planes were often used for these intelligence tasks, sneaking close to enemy waters to gather important information. Lately, Russian warships have been seen near the US coast, causing worries that they might be trying to collect information in a way similar to Cold War tactics. Back then, Soviet submarines often moved near US waters, gathering details on American naval activities, listening to communications, and checking how prepared US defenses were. The US, in turn, did the same by sending submarines and ships close to Soviet areas for similar spying purposes. This pattern of secret naval missions shows how important underwater and information-gathering technologies have been, and still are, in shaping world military strategies. The Cold War era was a time of intense rivalry and tension between nations, highlighted by the creation of powerful military alliances. NATO, led by the US and its allies, and the Warsaw Pact, led by the Soviet Union, divided Europe and other parts of the world into two opposing camps. These alliances were meant to protect their members from attacks and to discourage aggression from the other side. While direct battles between the US and the Soviet Union didn't happen, the two superpowers engaged in what we call proxy wars. In these conflicts, they supported different sides in wars that took place in regions like Korea, Vietnam, the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. One famous example is Cuba, which, under the leadership of Fidel Castro, became a key ally of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union provided Cuba with military and financial support, making Cuba a major player in Cold War politics. The frequent visits of Soviet ships to Cuba served as a sign of the importance of these alliances and how influence over regions shaped global power. Today, we can still see some of these patterns. Countries continue to form alliances and compete for global influence, just like during the Cold War. For example, Russian spy ships equipped with high-tech surveillance tools often approach US naval fleets trying to gather intelligence on American activities. However, the US Navy handles these situations with great skill and composure. When the spy ships get too close, the sailors on board, around 5,000 of them, act quickly to shut down electronic systems and send out fake signals to throw off the spies. The swift reactions and smart strategies used by the American Navy in these tense moments are a sign of their preparedness and expertise in modern-day geopolitics. Let's explore why these Russian spy ships are so crucial to Russia. Their main mission isn't to fight, but to secretly gather valuable information and keep a close watch on what's happening in the world's oceans. These ships act as the eyes and ears of the Russian Navy, always on alert, quietly observing and listening. Packed with advanced surveillance equipment, they can pick up all kinds of signals like radar waves and radio messages. This gives Russia an edge, helping them stay informed about what's going on at sea, track the movements of other navies, and understand the technology their rivals are using. But it doesn't stop there. These spy ships are also capable of throwing their enemies off track. They use clever tactics to mess with radar systems and communication networks, making it harder for their opponents to get a clear picture of what's happening. In addition to that, these Russian intelligence ships use cutting-edge technology like radar and sonar to sneakily keep tabs on the U.S. Navy ships. Although they often come into contact with U.S. vessels, they're allowed to operate in certain areas under international law, as long as they stay within those boundaries. In January 2023, a Russian spy ship was spotted cruising close to the United States, only a few miles off the coast of Hawaii. This wasn't the first time. Back in 2019, another Russian ship was flagged for dangerous behavior near the southeastern U.S. coast. Understanding these intelligence-gathering ships is essential because they sometimes venture dangerously close to U.S. aircraft carriers in the open ocean, creating potential risks. Aircraft carriers, which act like floating airports for the U.S. Navy, play a huge role in protecting national security, assisting in disaster relief, and carrying out military missions. The United States owns 11 gigantic nuclear-powered carriers, each of which can hold around 80 fighter jets. These ships aren't just the biggest in the world, but they also offer more space for aircraft than all other countries' carriers combined. Armed to the teeth, they play a crucial part in keeping essential sea routes safe and handling international crises. When a Russian spy ship gets too close, the aircraft carrier's Combat Information Center, also known as the Action Information Center, kicks into high gear. This part of the carrier, often considered its brain, is equipped with advanced tools for collecting, sorting, and sharing vital combat data. It's the nerve center where important decisions are made to keep the ship, its aircraft, and the surrounding area safe during military operations. Think of it as the carrier's control room, where all the critical info is processed and decisions are made to ensure the carrier is always ready to respond to threats. The Combat Information Center, CIC, receives a constant flow of data from multiple sources, including radar, sonar, visual lookouts, electronic countermeasure devices, radio signals, direction finders, intelligence reports, weather updates, operational orders, and various other documents. This broad mix of information must be carefully organized and displayed so that its tactical importance is immediately clear. Understanding and processing this data is essential for issuing commands and making quick decisions, especially in critical situations like when a Russian spy ship gets too close to the aircraft carrier. When such a potential threat is identified, the CIC follows strict procedures to trigger alarm systems. Audible and visual warnings are broadcast across the entire carrier, ensuring that the crew is fully informed of the danger. The quick and efficient spread of this alert is crucial for ensuring the ship's defense. Every crew member on board is extensively trained to respond to these types of situations. They know exactly what to do, having practiced the steps over and over. As soon as the alarm sounds, the ship shifts to high alert. Crew members rush to their assigned stations, ready to perform their duties with precision. Communication in the military is incredibly important, particularly during high-pressure moments. Clear and concise protocols are in place to ensure that messages are transmitted quickly and without confusion. This allows for the right actions to be taken immediately, safeguarding the carrier and its crew. Standardized codes and procedures have been developed to make sure that specific instructions and responses are exchanged smoothly and understood by everyone involved. For example, in the CIC, communication is handled through intercom systems, radios, and other devices. This setup makes it easy for officers to send important messages to the appropriate areas of the ship, ensuring that critical information reaches the right people without delay. In a tense situation where the crew of a ship is suddenly alerted to the presence of an enemy spy ship lurking nearby, immediately, the entire team springs into action, following strict defense protocols. These spy ships are masters of hiding in plain sight and are equipped to silently gather valuable information from aircraft carriers, such as mission details, operational plans, and even personal data about the crew. In moments like these, quick and clear communication is critical to prevent any leaks and protect both information and personnel. The first step is often to stop the enemy from accessing any data. For example, the crew might be ordered to turn off all electronic devices. This is a smart, proactive move, as it helps block any signals the enemy could intercept, preventing them from snooping on sensitive information. At the same time, turning off devices helps maintain discipline and order on board, allowing the crew to focus fully on their tasks. On U.S. Navy aircraft carriers, a wide range of highly advanced systems are in place to protect the ship's operations. These systems are specifically designed to counter spy ships' surveillance efforts, making it difficult for them to gather information. Not only do they block spying attempts, but they also interfere with enemy communications and radar, preventing them from tracking the ship or launching any harmful actions. One of the most important defense tactics used is electronic jamming. This involves sending out signals that confuse the radar of enemy spy ships, throwing off their surveillance and tracking capabilities. Additionally, aircraft carriers are equipped with powerful communication jamming technology. These systems can disrupt or completely block the radio waves and communication signals used by spy ships, making it nearly impossible for them to relay any intelligence they've gathered. In this way, the crew not only protects vital information, but also ensures that they can continue their operations safely and without interference from the enemy. The main goal is to disrupt the enemy's ability to communicate and work together effectively, which helps prevent them from carrying out their hostile plans. Aircraft carriers use smart tactics to mislead enemy spy ships. One such tactic is deploying decoys that imitate the electronic signals of real ships. This creates confusion, making it hard for spy ships to tell apart real signals from fake ones. This technique is essential for keeping aircraft carriers hidden and safe from easy detection. Moreover, aircraft carriers use something called signal intelligence, SIGINT, to collect various types of enemy communications and data. This can include spoken conversations, written messages, or information from radar and weapon systems. By gathering and studying this data, carriers gain valuable insights into how spy ships operate, their plans, and any potential threats they might pose. Over time, analyzing these signals helps carriers predict what spy ships might do next, allowing them to develop strategies to disrupt the enemy's communications and respond to threats effectively. The intelligence team on the carrier doesn't just watch spy ships, they closely track and analyze their behavior and movements. This involves checking if a spy ship is acting aggressively and how close it is to the carrier group. This detailed observation helps ensure that the carrier is prepared for any potential threats. When observing a spy ship, naval commanders can figure out how much of a threat it poses and what its goals might be. With this detailed information, they can make smart decisions about how to handle the situation to keep their carrier group safe. The leaders of the carrier thoroughly review all the details about the spy ship to assess the risk. They consider factors like the spy ship's previous actions, the current situation, and how much of a threat it might be. This evaluation helps them decide whether to open a dialogue or prepare for defensive actions, based on how dangerous they think the spy ship is. Even though spy ships are fast and equipped with advanced technology, they cannot easily surprise a U.S. aircraft carrier. The carrier's sophisticated surveillance systems are very effective and can detect spy ships from far away. To ensure they are monitored thoroughly, U.S. Navy aircraft carriers use advanced radar technologies. These radars perform various tasks, such as scanning the water's surface for ships. One type, called surface search radar, is especially useful for spotting nearby ships and potential hazards like rocks or obstacles in the water. U.S. Navy aircraft carriers don't just rely on powerful radars to detect threats. They use a combination of technologies including visual lookouts, electronic countermeasures, radio direction finders, and intelligence reports. This mix of methods helps them identify and track potential dangers like spy ships, making sure they don't remain hidden. Spotting spy ships quickly is crucial for maintaining maritime safety. These ships are not meant for direct combat. Their primary role is to gather intelligence. However, if they are seen near U.S. aircraft carriers and are considered a security threat, action must be taken. Failing to detect them promptly can lead to serious consequences. For example, it gives spy ships more time to gather sensitive information that could compromise national security. A delayed response might also increase the risk of these ships taking aggressive actions or collaborating with hostile groups, threatening both the carrier's safety and regional stability. Rules of engagement, RIGOE, are essential in guiding how to respond in these situations. ROE are guidelines that describe when and how to use force or take actions that might be seen as provocative. For U.S. Navy ships facing enemy vessels, RO focuses on de-escalating tensions but also provides a framework for escalating responses if necessary. When dealing with potentially hostile ships up close, U.S. Navy sailors must follow strict ROE to ensure their actions match the level of threat. The decision to use deadly force depends on how dangerous the approaching ship is, emphasizing the need for quick and accurate detection to properly assess and respond to threats while adhering to international laws and military rules. Examining a possible encounter between a Russian spy ship and a U.S. aircraft carrier highlights the complexity and challenges of such situations. It shows the importance of the U.S. Navy being well prepared to handle threats from other countries. The Navy is equipped with top-notch technology, advanced surveillance tools, and cutting-edge defensive and offensive systems on its ships. With these resources, the Navy can swiftly detect, assess, and respond to threats. Their ability to react and adapt to changing circumstances reflects their strength and readiness. The dedication and bravery of Navy sailors are crucial in maintaining U.S. power in the oceans. Their rigorous training and commitment demonstrate the Navy's resolve to protect national interests and ensure maritime security. What do you think about the U.S. Navy submarine that surfaced within the Russian fleet? Share your opinion with us in the comments section.